that too early.
You might have been a
I
snap
did.
too early.
Too early. Story of my life. Welcome, everybody. How you
Interesting
doing today?
sounds of opening a can. Hello,
I'll,
chat.
I'll, I'll get it. I'll get it working next time.
Yeah.
Law is here early. Appreciate you for hopping in. And
Yeah.
Gwen, appreciate you so much, Daisy. That's exciting that you set a reminder just for this. While people are streaming in, Kristen, I had a question.
Mm.
Who, what, where, when, why? Which one of those are your favorite? Also, which?
So I took a class on listening from this really
Okay.
great coach friend of mine, and the correct answer when you're asking questions, especially like with a friend, is what. However, is what. And what questions are the best questions to ask? And we can get into that later in the show.
Wait, no,
However,
what questions?
is this like who's on first?
Yeah. Kristen's on first.
Yeah. And I'm like wondering, do people know what reference I'm making to who's on first? The original like stupid pun joke on the radio.
Okay, so what questions are the best?
Ask the most is why. Like why? Why is thing working out this way? Why am I feeling this way? Like why? Friends shut me down when I go into my why cycles.
That's so interesting, and like it also kind of makes me want to ask why Beishi ran a speed limit to get to the show. We appreciate it, but maybe don't break the law so much.
Yes, I did mention to drive carefully when you podcasted about having to go a little extra fast on the road.
Yeah.
We're not insured for any injuries of our viewers. Please be careful when making it to the show.
Send any and all complaints to Kristen. She said she'd handle it. Nona Free Trades, Gabriel Mikado, thanks for dropping in 22 as well. Anthony, thanks for dropping by for the first time. Appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, Free Trade said I would have chosen where. I wonder why.
There's so many stupid puns to make in this episode, and I'm going to try to make as many as I can. Maybe.
What about you? What's your favorite question word?
I think I don't agree that it's the best one, even though your friend is the expert. I do like what questions because I generally find them to be the most like versatile tools in your toolbox to like have an interesting conversation. Like it's always really fun for me because so this is how I am at like any event. I'll go to the event. There will be 30, 50, 100 people, and I will look at them and be instantly like exhausted, and then I'll find one person that is interesting, is dressed interesting, does something like does something, and I'll just like lock in. And if they let me, I'll just like interrogate them about their life because I think that's really fun.
So you're saying peacocking works on you?
What is like the interesting clothes stuff? I mean, like my lizard brain is definitely it definitely notices the peacock items. But yeah, so in those conversations, I ask what a lot, like what are the important things to think about like when you do the thing that you do or whatever. Like that's really fun. But ultimately, I think I like why better because I never really aged out of asking why, because it just it's like why is a rebellion against a scenario that you're in as like in a question. Like, why is the thing that strikes fear into the heart of anybody that ever wanted you to just shut the heck up?
Yeah. I like how Daisy said, why gives more tea about the gist?
That's true. Daisy is right. Double D, thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, and Ivy mentioned that she has the ultimate icebreaker question. Please do tell us what the question is. And I'm scared.
Yeah, and I'll transition over to our banger setup while we get that going. Okay. But Ivy, oh goodness, Kristen, you can take that one.
I know. I was like, will this trigger YouTube censors? I think not, but like, yeah, if you find 3 people and ask them in the human centipede configuration of ABC, who in the group would you pick as B? I think, yeah, that really opens it up. It's just like the advanced version of kill Mary doing it or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean,
Well,
you do find out who your true friends are, I guess, with that question.
yeah. Okay.
Uh,
Well, we're getting right into the bangers, it seems.
okay. First banger, L. Consistent banger poster. If you're not following Riot Ghouls, I recommend doing that because she's great. Everything she posts is funny, insightful, or just like really, really future nostalgic, I guess is how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Case in point here, it is a wonderful moving picture. I think they call them they don't call them talkies; those come later. But the it's very reminiscent of Gary's Mod, if anyone's familiar, and it's just a woman at a keyboard at an old computer, and it's just spinning around, and the spinning is going in the wrong directions. I can never get enough of this. Oh, and they write me in the zone. Is this how you feel when you're in the zone, Kristen?
Yes, I think so. And I was also wondering, like, where do you even find these kind of gifts?
Okay, so I don't know where they found this one specifically, but I would not be surprised if they made this one
Oh, that's
because
true. That's true.
they mess around with digital art a lot. But there's also like pockets of the internet that just like traffic in this kind of stuff. I love it, and it brings me straight back to playing Half-Life 2 and Counter-Strike and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, Skibidi Toilet's a Gmod, right?
Yeah. Skibidi Toilet is the spiritual successor to Banana Phone and all that.
Right.
And if you disagree, fight me because like it just I really do think it is.
I have to bring it up because my conspiracy is that bringing it up helps us get into the algorithms for YouTube.
That would love it if Skibidi Toilet Ohio Riz got us some views. But
Yes.
you know we persist through the horrors. So why is this a banger? This is a banger in the same way that like a lot of things on the internet today are bangers. Hi, Angelica. It's a banger because it makes you stop and go, what? Like when you see this in your feed, when you see this in your feed, there's like an emotion of, huh? Like this is off or weird, not in like a bad way, but it's like not what your brain is expecting to see. And a lot of like modern banger, modern sensibility humor is that like it is outrageous in a way that like gives you pause. Do you have any reactions to that?
Yeah, that's really true. And algorithmically, it seems like Twitter right now, they have changed the algorithms where they value active minutes. So it's all the likes and retweets actually don't matter anymore. It's about how long someone spends on your tweet, which is very similar to TikTok, right? So now, like, if you use this kind of thing where you're just like, wait, what? Like, that reaction is what's rewarded across platforms. So, and I noticed that, with Warpcast, although we talk about it being a mainly text platform, like, GIFs do really well.
Yeah, like images, videos, not so much. I think because autoplay isn't really as strong of a factor there, especially because it's silent autoplay. But even for the nerd app, people love pretty pictures, and that's just how we are. Although I gotta say it's not super exciting to me, or not super. It doesn't feel good that Elon is directly incentivizing the Matrix, because that's what like dwell time on a piece of content is like effectively incentivizing, which is not my favorite vision of the future. All right, this is King, who I thought was dead, ostensibly on the internet.
Yeah, well, I got trolled, I think.
He's faking us out.
Huh?
He's faking us out.
Yeah, I got faked out. But I don't know. Like, actually, I never followed up ever since. I think I in a way I ruined their quietly fading away strategy.
Yeah, you kept telling people.
So I think he then like did the complete opposite thing of like, oh, just kidding.
Yeah.
So then maybe he can pull off another quiet fading again. I don't know. But I didn't understand this one. What is this one about?
I don't think it's that deep, Kristen. For our audio listeners, it's the profile King, which is a cute little dog in a suit, PFP. It's just, hello? Anybody home? And I think it's just kind of a check to see if Farcaster is like dead, full stop. And then, of course, Cassie comes in with the swoop and casts hello by Lionel Richie, which is a meme staple, actually.
Oh. Oh, this is where I also profess my ignorance because I was like, I don't know this song, and then I would have picked Adele or something a little bit too obvious.
Yeah, it's it's in the same class of like
Mhm.
references as like, I mean, it's not in the same class. It's much more niche, but it's like the Rick Astley "Never Gonna Give You Up," like Rick rolling.
Mhm.
There's a whole subgenre of memes which is just like referencing songs like that, where they're 80s over the top, like goofy kind of stuff.
Got it. I'm gonna interrupt with like Eloise saying, had to step out of the surgery room for a bit. Need to register my streak in will BRB. I am slightly concerned. I
I,
hope that patients are okay.
I hope you are not getting surgeryed upon and nobody that you care about, or at least like whatever the scenario that puts you in a surgery room, like I hope everything's going okay. But thanks for
No,
dropping
I
by.
think they're work in the hospital. I think this is their
Oh,
job.
okay, good. I wasn't sure of the context.
All
I'm glad. All right, so now we're gonna roll into this one. Let me know if you can hear this audio. Audio, yes.
No, I can't hear it. Chat, can
Okay.
anyone else hear it? Oh,
Audience, let me know if you can hear anything. I don't think you
I like
can.
how Danish Prop said 9% of us on FC got the Lionel Halloumi.
All
Thanks
right.
to Snickerdoodle polls, we now have more demographic data about everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Farcaster does skew a little old right now. All right, so we'll figure out audio later. But so this is, I think, from the British, like one of the British. No, okay, thanks, Huggle Monster. Appreciate that. So this is
Mhm.
from a museum of some kind. I think a British museum. Actually, this might be the Met. I don't know, but it's from a museum. The context of this is actually from TikTok,
Mhm.
and I'll drop the link in the chat. We'll see if YouTube will let us do that. So you can go watch it yourself if you'd like to. But it's a British museum curator, if I'm being honest, a caricature of like what you would imagine a museum curator that's British to be, just exactly out of central casting. But the context is that the Gen Z intern is writing the script for
Uh-huh.
their promotion. So it starts off with a classic. Brat summer is over, besties. It's time to enter your historical era. That kind of stuff over throughout the course of the video.
Mhm.
I love that. Not because I think it's like particularly entertaining once the initial like joke, you're like, oh, this is an old person doing like young slang.
Mhm.
I like that people that aren't traditionally participating in internet memes are attempting to. Um,
But don't you think
Obviously,
there's a bell curve to the cringe? You know what I mean?
yeah, for
Somehow it's
sure.
really charming when it's someone really old doing it. But when we do it,
Okay, so my thoughts on that are I never think it's cringe when somebody is trying to make something that doesn't exist before. Like I think
Mhm.
the outcome cannot be like good, but like the act of trying to create is an inherently vulnerable one. So like
Mhm.
in all but like the most egregious hateful cases, I'm usually like go for it. Like person, I want you to create, because creating is really hard and scary. There's a piece of this that we like don't quite understand because we're old AF. And that's that like cringe humor explicitly is like part of the internet's meta right now. And so like if you are unironically cringe,
Mhm.
like if you are accidentally cringe, that's like a problem. But if you are like, hey, I'm trying to make this as cringy as possible, and there's
Mhm.
a lot of really, really popular like younger creators that do this, like hitting on girls in like the Gen Alpha kid, like iPad kid voice, like that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
That is so far out of the standard deviation of cringe that it becomes high quality because look, I think kind of you're in on the joke. And so I think that's kind of what you're saying, where it's hit or miss. But ultimately, I personally want more people trying to make more fun, joyful things in the world.
Mhm.
All right, let's lock in here with Murtaza, who has us asking a question of ourselves, which is how do we feel when Murtaza kind of hints at the question that Ivy's talking about, which is Farcaster dead? If Murtaza left, I think some people would be very depressed. What do you think?
I agree, and I love what Chris said. You can't leave. We pay for that dinner.
It's true. It's true.
Yes, the hard-earned 5 USDCs pay for our little snacks.
Yeah.
I just imagine every time, like, I'm lucky enough to get a 5 USDC, it's just like dad giving me a little treat, like a little cat, and I'm.
I mean, I do think that there's something a little dystopian about like getting an allowance from Big Brother's social media platform, but like I'm not gonna.
I also complain when I have to pay $8 to get our Twitter stream to work. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I would much rather be on the platform that's paying me to post stuff than not, right? But but this is good because it's the same energy as like the first one in a different format, right? Like the L post where you stop and you're like, what? Like, or like, what is that? Like, this is a what? When you think like when he's pretending like he's going to leave this platform. I don't particularly like this kind of joke because I think like
is it clickbaity?
It's not that it's clickbaity. It's that like a good practical joke has everybody like laughing at the same time, and I think this like explicitly relies on you feeling bad or concerned for a second. So it's not necessarily something that I would make, but like I kind of live on a little bit different continuum of like jokes. But Murtaza, he's been doing internet stuff for a long freaking time. Like he's very good at this type of setup punchline.
Yeah.
All right, let's rock into this last one here, and I'm gonna let you explain it.
Oh yeah. So because of my day job doing healthcare consulting, I do have to hop on LinkedIn. And as many of you know, it is I don't want to say it's cringe because it's almost become meta cringe at this point, but there's a certain format. I mean, many of you have probably seen this format of making like pointing out the open to work little ring and whether it is like cringe to have it on, right?
An anti-signal.
Exactly. And then, you probably have seen the ones that are like, oh, I'm very proud to have it on. And then like, they have a zoom in photo of them with the open to work. And then, everyone claps. But I love this one because Courtney here kind of like said the truth. It's kind of like Emperor's New Clothes sort of situation of like, like, you don't want to feel desperate when you have the open to work situation. And that, in reality, many of us are desperate, right? Like there's like a bajillion like mega tech layoffs. It's like many of my friends are still looking for jobs and it's really, really tough out there. So, I think like, her ability to just like stretch that joke to its natural, like it was just so perfect. And the pink, I feel like the design, how it matches her clothes, it's just this subtlety of like, making it just like a little bit designy really helps. And I'm sure like, she's getting tons of interest just from this like one post, but should be more than like traditional application there actually. So we've come to a world where like being able to make bangers actually helps you find work.
Yeah. And I particularly like this one because it makes you ask a question, which is like, one, is it inherently cringe to have the open to work? And like, there's actually a weird American dream kind of thing in here too, where like somehow it has become like inherently like not cool to be like, hey, I want to like take whatever opportunity comes my way, which is like a weird like anti-American, like I get the anti-capitalism kind of thing, but it's not from people that are anti-capitalist. It's from people that typically have work to give out and they're trying to find people that fit whatever in their mind is. And so like not hiring from those people is like another like subtle class kind of like signifier that we've talked about, but it like questions the concept of this signal in general. Like, like I would like this signal to mean a certain thing, but it doesn't. So I'm trying to like rejigger this signal so that it means that thing in the way that I want it to, which I think is really cool. Oh, it looks like Nerd dropped in. Lost Soul. Thanks. Thank you all for dropping by. Ivy, let's get into this. Ivy is asserting that there are okay, we can talk about that too. LinkedIn knows where you go if you couldn't make it as an influencer anywhere else. I think that's a little harsh. I think that like as with anything that's like clever, it is true to an extent. But like you could kind of flip it and be like, why are the people on LinkedIn able to get an amount of reach that they couldn't get other places? Like I think a real answer is that the type of people that are consuming content on LinkedIn, there's a class of people that are basically prisoners that have to work and are on LinkedIn for their work. So there's a captive audience, which is kind of dystopian, but like real. But there's also a bunch of people that are like earnestly turning to LinkedIn to try. And I'm not a LinkedIn apologist. Like I generally don't hang out there, but I try to have empathy for people in a lot of different like life paths that I didn't have. And so like for those people where all they know is like their regional, sales career that they've like put a lot of hard work into, like this is their path to kind of like talk about the things that they've spent a lot of like time trying to learn.
Right.
And so like I don't think it's like the fairest characterization to say that they couldn't hack it anywhere else. Like there's a lot of people that like lives are super path dependent, and it's unfair, I think, to a lot of people to say that they couldn't do the same thing somewhere else given a different kind of like sequencing of their life.
I want to say it's actually the opposite. If you are really good at a certain influencer format that fits other places, it's very hard to do LinkedIn. Because
I think that's true.
Your style is just so orthogonal. However, I think this is where there is like an arbitrage opportunity, kind of like early Farcaster. Like if you can make even remotely banger content, LinkedIn is the place to be because most of it is very like homogeneous. I think it's the issue. You can almost guess, and there's like, in fact, I think there's like a LinkedIn cringe generator where you can just like pump it out, right? But then like if you can find your audience on LinkedIn, I think it's a really unique island, and like you said, like people are unfortunately forced to be there. But like one thing I've noticed is that now there's LinkedIn games, right? Like they're trying to be kind of like frames, but their version of it.
Yeah, we like, all right. I think it's a little hacky to jump to like 1984 and oh my gosh, what's the other one? The like 1984, Brave New World is always mentioned in the same breath. They are very different stories with very different lessons. And Ivy, you're not being that catty. Just Kristen and I are both pretty cranky right now, so we're gonna be pushing back on
catty.
people.
I think that is like the real secret.
But so like people often reference 1984 and Brave New World, I think like completely wrongly. You like often they'll confuse the two, but like the main difference is 1984 is like the Apple commercial dystopia where somebody is watching what you do and controlling and trying to psyop you into doing the things that they want you to do. Whereas Brave New World is everybody playing games until they basically die because they don't do anything else other than these like shallow surface level like experiences. Both terrifying dystopias, but like different. Games going into every social platform does give Brave New World to me a little bit, especially ones where it's not like a natural, like, oh, this is the place where you do waste time, so let's like add these things to it. Not that playing games are inherently a waste of time. So I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I'm very torn because like now I think there's like some social function to it where you can like see how other people are doing in the game or something, and I can see that okay, this is actually in a way less cringe of a hi, I hope you've been doing well kind of message, right? Be like, oh, you did blah 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 in this game, ha ha ha.
So, since we're feeling catty, I'm going to question that. Just because you're interacting with another person in something, I don't think that makes it an inherently like pro-social experience.
That's
like I think it. So I think it can, and it can maybe like give some redeeming value to like a thing that is inherently like not doing anything for you. But like there's a lot of versions, especially with I'll say like super casual mobile games today, where they like just put you in a group with a bunch of people, and like the fact that you are now a de facto team, even if it's like a generally single player game, I think can very easily just turn into a dark pattern where you're beholden to these strangers that you have never met and will never meet. And like again, I'm feeling a little dramatic this morning, but like I have we'll say like people in my family that like spend a good chunk of their time on mobile game kind of stuff. And if they didn't feel a sense of micro guilt for not logging on Friday night at 7 p.m. because that's when the weekend tournament starts for their little like, Scrabble, whatever game, like I think that they might be having a better, Huggle Monster clans. The concept of clans started off really cool, and then I think now is kind of weaponized in some cases with games.
Gosh. So I Speak Nerd, who I think is the de facto expert at games, said no carrot in 1984 also.
He's right.
BNW is all carrot and dopamine. What's BNW?
Brave New World.
Oh, Brave New World.
But I think he's right. That's a succinct way to describe it. 1984, no carrot.
Okay, this is the banger. Is Cam describing crypto group chats?
I am, in fact.
Are any of you trapped in group chats that you're too shy to leave at this point? Please don't be beholden.
Anytime somebody posts like loss or win porn into your group chat, like that's a way of manipulating you to participate. What's up, Sam?
Yeah.
All
okay,
right.
well, before we go on to question more of ourselves, we want to do our sponsor ad read today.
Kristen is holding this entire podcast together. All right, so our sponsor is from the one and only Ponder by Colin Johnson, or Kojo on Farcaster. I'm going to show his profile. We're going to drop some links in the chat. If you hang out on Farcaster in any meaningful way, set up a Ponder poll. It's easy. It's nice. It's fun. All right. So this is kojo.eth right here. Let's drop this bad boy into the chat. We're going to drop Ponder surveys into the chat. I recommend you follow these folks to stay up to date on something cool that's coming forward. We can't talk about it yet, but it's going to be pretty slick. It might involve some change. But so this is like what you see when
change. You mean like crypto change?
Yeah, crypto, Obama, lots of kinds of change in the world. Okay. So Ponder is like at its core polls. Questions are kind of the foundation of how we learn more things about the world around us, and not to get like super heavy with it, but it's really, really hard to get signal online. And so if you do anything like run a business or just like run a channel that you want people to interact with, engage with, like polls are a really lightweight, useful way of getting some amount of signal. Obviously, not all of them are, the best use of your time. What's cool about Ponder is in an ephemeral app like Farcaster, they have kind of a permanent dashboard of all of the things that you ask and people's responses, and like the stuff that you're trying to figure out. It's not going to go away like other parts of Warpcast probably do. And so they got some pretty cool metrics. I actually haven't seen this recently, but like thus far, 95,000 different accounts have interacted with these polls, a couple 100,000 votes. There are rewards here if you are so inclined. And so that's something that you might want to keep a watch out for. And yeah, Huggle Monster, this is an ad, because guess what? We're trying to make some money here. But also, we really like, I like the Ponder polls. They're fun, and they're fun to interact with. Let's see, do you listen to music while you work? Always, sometimes, never. Super easy. But when we can slice it up into these different formats, or these different layers, I think you can get some really interesting information out of that.
Right. Oh, I love how Curious Hermit is about to start turning some of the neuroethics case study situations into Ponder polls. I can't wait to see these.
That's actually sick. I don't know if Colin's in the chat right now, but I'm going to DM after this to let him know that you're going to do that, because he would love that. He actually really would.
I hope these are not like trolley problems. Are you going to throw trolley problems at us?
I mean, honestly,
it'll be more classy than that.
Yeah. All right. So this is actually a really fun one before we move on to the next thing. So Dan asked, as a civilization, we should spend blank on nuclear energy. We know Farcaster is for the nerds. We know that. So we know it's going to be tech leaning. So we get 80% more.
Yeah, that's pretty extreme.
Yeah. Like you ask a bunch of people on the street, you're going to get a lot of different answers than that, I think. When we start separating into like we'll say like the nucleus, or at least like the people that have been around on Farcaster the longest, it goes up even more. So of the like OG Farcasters, you can just call them all nerds. Call us all nerds, because that is how they act. But so
what are you think? Like, do you think we should spend more on nuclear energy?
I think that it is not a viable thing to not explore any path to different energy resources. I'm not a climate scientist. I studied physics, so I've like thought about this question. I thought I was going to go be a nuclear sub like officer actually for a while, but
Wow.
but the but then I went Army, and turns out they don't have submarines in the Army. That's weird.
Mhm.
But so like I thought about that a lot.
Mhm.
I just kind of think like energy needs are never going to go down in the future. I don't think we make machines that are like that much more efficient than today. And so I think we
Mhm.
kind of have a responsibility to explore a ton of different options. Do I
Right.
think that means like, you know, dropping bombs in the middle of the desert all the time to like fuck around with nuclear stuff? No. But I do think that we probably have an obligation to explore.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness, the chat has gone crazy while we're talking about nuclear testing or whatever.
Very good topic.
Yeah. Okay. So go follow Kojo. I dropped those links in the chat. Maybe we'll set up a ponder poll after this.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, we talked about this before. We will do that right after this.
All right.
I want to ask you about questions.
Mm.
What do you think is the most important question you've ever asked? In chat, I don't tell Kristen these beforehand, so she's like on the fly trying to come up with like really
Oh,
important
totally. You can see my little gears that's hurting. It's like super rusty, so you can keep
little the hamsters going overtime.
exactly. My default answer is like still I brought this up earlier in some of the early episodes. Like, what is your deepest intention? Like that is oftentimes the most important chaplaincy question, and essentially all chaplaincy questions lead to this one question. And with the hope that deep inside we all have the best intentions for the highest good.
Is that like a helpful question though? Like,
Yeah,
like
if you ask people this on the street, that it will make them pause. But yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess my question is like, what's the point of that question? Is it like to get an answer? Is it to like make you pause and effectively micro meditate for a second? Like what is the point?
yeah, that's it. It's like a point of metacognition you can drop into someone, and it doesn't like that's the sad part is that we never care about your answer, like in a sense, you know.
You heard it here first, folks. Chaplains don't care about your thoughts.
That's how I feel when I talk to my teacher. I'm like blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I don't think he actually cares like per se what I'm saying. It's like about what you think about what you're saying.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that the LLM therapy wave is actually going to be beneficial.
Oh, what a controversy.
Yeah.
I think so. Like at least the ones that I've tried. Actually, I have a friend who's making a refract.space. So REFRACT.space. And it's a internal family systems based like inquiry thing.
Okay.
And yeah, it is really great. And I recommend it to people who can't like, access therapy. Of course, like real therapy, real people is still the best. But this is a great like second tier thing you can do. And a lot of it is asking questions.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and that kind of bums me out a little bit. Like Do
you ask questions to generate controversy between us?
Yeah, for sure.
Because it makes better content.
I mean, I think it does make better content, but like, okay, so I ask questions first and foremost because I want to know. But like the wanting to know is super fluid. So like we talked about on a previous show, like I say things to try them out to see if like they actually are the thing that I like feel or believe or like think or want to think. I ask questions because I know that there's some piece of the conversation or the picture or whatever that I don't have. And that could be like near or far or whatever. But I like am asking it because I think you're going to help me figure that thing out together. And either directly or by like spurring a line of conversation that like gets me closer to whatever that amorphous thing is. And so like when I ask you dumb questions like who, what, when, where, why, pick your favorite, it's like hopefully an entertaining vessel, but like it is to get to the point of like, okay, Kristen thinks this, why would they think that? And because like understanding the the why, or even just like the what in the case of complicated things for me is like joyful and useful, I guess is how I would describe it, if that makes sense.
Gosh. That makes sense. Though I want to point out that before the show started, you and I were going, yeah. our moods were not the greatest.
Yeah, we were grumpy pusses today, chat.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We're super grumpy. And then like I feel like I'm at the stage right now where I'm like, okay, useful questions are the ones that get me going. And like or like, you know, get me like useful information for which then I can make better decisions in the world. So I feel like you're talking more about that camp, right? Of like useful decisions and how to inform them.
I think partially. So one, actually I might have it on the shelf behind me.
Well, I'm
no, it's at my house.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna narrate things out on your shelf, but I don't understand. Like that military plaque that I'm sure signifies something really important. The photo that looks like a diner photo, but it's not the diner photo.
Yeah, so the photo is just it's a painting, and it's a very pretty painting. It's actually part of an art collection that folks on this chat like might recognize, Midnight Breeze, but you could like redeem the digital art for the physical one. Which is exciting. Yeah, and then I'll drop it afterwards. But I know the account. I can picture the PFP. But so that plaque, one of the things that I think the military does really, really well is they mark ceremonies.
Yeah,
and they bring like they understand the importance of ceremony and ritual, like we talked about on that episode, and they bring in physical totems to like mark those occasions. And I think like, yes, the internet is real life and that stuff's really important, but physical totems for me, like you don't want to have a perpetual attachment to like a rock or whatever. But it is nice to have like a tactile reminder of something meaningful to you.
Yeah.
And so that is a reminder. It's one of the markers of me finishing up my time as an instructor at the Army's Officer Candidate School. I was a leadership instructor there. And so like as a platoon instructor, I, took, I think I went through 3 class cycles. So just about a year work of with various candidates that are becoming second lieutenants. And that was kind of like the unit being like, hey, you did this for a year. Like, congrats, here's your hat. Like, get the heck out of the Army. Thank you. And so, no, they wanted me to stay because like everybody is undermanned all the time. But they were happy I was doing the thing that I wanted to do. The whole point of this. So Richard Feynman has a couple different books written about him. The physicist worked on the Manhattan Project, like kind of one of the fathers of modern physics, quantum physics. He has a book written about him called The Pleasure of Finding Things Out. And it's mostly a collection of like anecdotes of science and like, discovering interesting things, even in the midst of the horrors of World War II. But for me, the pleasure of finding things out is like part of the reason why I stuck with school for like as long and as hard as I did, where it is undeniable when you like learn something that you didn't know before that you can now, especially in like math and physics, you can like implement those skills and techniques to solve problems, which is like useful, but also joyful, which is, I might just be using that phrase from now on because I've never said that before, but it kind of feels right. Like there's a pleasure in doing that in the same way that there's like a pleasure in mowing your lawn if you like treat it that way. And so for me, asking questions is fun for its own sake because I like discovering more about like the nature of my friends in reality. And Nerd says that dopamine makes the brain go brr, which is true. But I also think that there's other things in there like connection, which like I don't know is as explicitly tied to dopamine, but you tell me, science nerd. Neuroscience PhD.
Well, here's one of the basic mechanisms of dopamine release, right? Like, why do we love crypto and casinos and all these mechanisms? Yeah. It's the fact that it doesn't give you a reward every time. So I think that's where people may not realize, it's a bit counterintuitive. If you're rewarded every single time, your dopamine release will just stop. It's unpredictability that's really addictive. So therefore, if you ask a question and someone gives you an unexpected response, then yeah, you are like rewarded because you discovered an information that doesn't match either what you know or like, what you predicted. Why are you laughing?
Because I'm like, useful and joyful, when in fact I'm addicted to gambling. That's what we've learned today is I'm addicted to gambling that makes me no money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends, right? So I think that there's also like practically speaking. I also want to address, since I wrote a really like extreme value proposition for this episode. And we're going to help you make better friends. We're going to help you like build the right things, and we're going to help you understand yourself better. I think we're hitting on understanding yourself. But then to maybe a better friend, I think that's where the questionings and comes in, right? The connection piece, at least. It's good friends ask questions.
Why? Is it an input or an output?
I personally think it's because it feels good to be heard, and people who ask the right questions like can invoke answers out of you. So it's almost like cloud computing. Like in a way, like you can connect your brain with someone else's brain and use their brain to help your brain if you are in a great conversation with a lot of questions and a lot of like reflective listening.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I buy that. I buy that good friends ask questions. I buy that that's kind of so wait, did you say that there was an input or an output? Like, are you a good friend and therefore you ask questions, or do you ask questions in order to become a good friend?
Ooh, I think more of the latter. That like asking good questions improves friendships.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think at the very least on one side, because the other person feels like they're getting like meaningful engagement. No, like they're making a connection with somebody that is like invested in their lives. That's interesting. Like when you think about this, how explicitly do you like think about the role of questioning in relationships? Because there's a lot of different types of questions.
So that's where we were talking about the different like why, what, who, etc. kinds of questions.
Yeah.
And like according to my friend who teaches listening based on the compassionate communications framework, they say that what questions are the best because it grounds you to the person's reality. Because the problem is that if you asking a bunch of why questions,
it's
then
abstract.
Like, it gets really abstracted,
Yeah.
Whereas what questions give you a lot of information. And then the thing is, I was like, oh, what about how questions? Aren't how questions also useful? But like, if you actually practice asking these different types of questions with someone like that you care about, you realize that like somehow what questions gives you more degrees of freedom as to what they would say, whereas how narrows it to a modality in a weird way.
I fully agree with that, and I actually do that on purpose. So like I think a lot about users and creating experiences that like a person, like a normal person with no context, has to interact with. And in like a conversational context, asking a general why question is really, really hard because like you've pointed out, a lot of people don't really reflect on why they do things because like one, there's not a right answer. Two, it's really hard because like
right, and then we literally make it up. Like we do something and then we explain why, but that why is a completely made up thing.
Yeah, retconning your entire day or week is like it's super real. That said, the like you can use these as like precision instruments if you've like gotten to a point in a conversation where you're like actually a useful partner. So like for example, when I was at business school, I really took advantage of the opportunity to like take somebody that worked at like Uber in China when it was just getting off the ground before they got crushed by Didi, right? Like I would take the opportunity to ask about a bunch of stuff that I would never really be able to know elsewhere. And the I don't know, the most useful questions for me were when I like understood enough through what questions, like, oh, what did you do? Like, tell me about like this piece of it. There's like usually bits and pieces of the what answer that
Mhm.
like if you like click on that and like lean into it, it gets a really, really interesting why. Like, okay, we responded this way when the government censors came into our office. And then
Mhm.
the question that I would like want to follow up was like, okay, you took this action, like why did you do this instead of this?
Mhm.
Like if you narrow it as like if you like make left and right limits on that question, it's
Mhm.
usually a lot less overwhelming for that person, and like maybe they're still making it up on the spot, but like that grounding is really, really I found useful in conversations.
Yeah, and I think like although this is part of the answering or like reflecting rather than questioning.
Mm.
Um, one trick almost to indicate that you have listened to the answer to a question is to repeat what they say, but only in 5 words,
Oh man, you're making
and
me
then
count.
yeah, exactly. So don't like reflect what they say and just take up as much time as they did. Like, because what we're
Mm.
doing is compressing information for the other person and
Right.
making it a little bit more portable to digest and to reflect upon. And then like there's also different ways in which you can change that reflection. So for example, like emotions, like you feel blah, or like it is, or values, it's important to you that blah blah blah, or conflict, like I hear you say this and this, and what's true about that. Like so that there's ways in which you can do it. However, I feel like one thing that I want to bring up to relate it to like our existence on Farcaster and other social
Mhm.
networks is the Moxie baiting question.
Yeah. What about it? What's the question?
What do you think about questions where it should be fairly obvious to someone who has read the original post or cast, like what the answer is?
I mean, I think it's less of an answer about that specific one and more my general position on things you put out into the world. I
Mm-hmm.
think clearly low effort attempts at stuff are not that interesting to me. I never respect the hustle. Like I think or never disrespect the hustle in like that kind of sense. Where like, okay, you're just being, we'll say like a general participant in like a mostly hits driven like social platform. We do need some kind of conversational liquidity in that sense, like to have an
Mm-hmm.
interesting place to hang out. But
Mm-hmm.
like for me, it's kind of a really deeply personal question. Like if a chatbot could have the same like series of questions for the next like 100 responses that you give, like
Mm-hmm.
I think you are functionally equivalent to like adding the value of that chatbot on the platform. And like that's not a remark about you as a person, but I like don't like the network won't care if you leave because you're not contributing anything meaningful to it, because you're contributing something that's like fundamentally a commodity, which is like a baseline question, which is like fine and not like morally wrong. It's just boring.
Right.
What do you think?
I think it is such a almost like a prisoner's dilemma situation, because it's like you can either like try to ask like 1,000 easy to answer questions across different people and see who actually answers,
Yep.
or you can take a gamble and ask a really like thought through question to one person, and that would I think statistically more likely to build a stronger connection. You might get a mutual follow and get into conversation. So
Yeah.
like uh, I personally like when I first started on Farcaster and how I'm able to make the friends I do now. Like I chose the latter, where like I went deep rather than broad, and
Mm,
I find that has been very rewarding. However, it did take like a year's time to cultivate that.
yeah. I mean, I guess if we ask ourselves what is our deepest intention
Hmm.
with how we're operating on the internet, like that is a really important thing to know. Like for me, it has generally been kind of in a similar boat where like I very rarely reply with a question that I didn't like deeply want to know the answer to. Now, I might only deeply want to know the answer to for the next like 10 minutes and then I move on with my day. But like the spark of like, no, earnestly, I would like to know this because I think it would be like interesting, add value, like add joy to my day or whatever. Or just like it's like fascinating. And I think interesting and fascinating are different.
Hmm.
But anyway, so like that that is how I feel comfortable interacting online. If you're just trying to like collect pennies in front of the
Mhm.
steamroller of social media, like I also get that too.
I'm like, what is the steamroller representing here? Like, the coin crashing?
Oh yeah, take your pick. I mean, it's Moxie Price, it's meta changing, it's spam blockers.
Mm,
It's like every dollar you make, there's a
mhm.
steamroller waiting to stop you.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you a question. So, as
Please.
a seasoned SaaS founder, like something that I know from the Y Combinator School of Things is that there's a standard set of like 5 questions that you can
Okay.
use to discover what a customer needs. So,
Hmm.
like, what is something you stay up at night thinking about? When's the last time you encountered a problem? Why was this hard? What are some solutions you tried, and what didn't you love about the solution? What do you think about this universal package of 5 questions?
Well, let me caveat this and say that I'm not currently running like a bajillionaire unicorn startup by YC. So like take it with a big old chunk of salt. That's not how people talk. Like that's it's not how people think. It's not how people react. It's how say is Sam still here? It's how skin suit people talk. Like,
This is the
very
startup skin suit. It's the
yeah.
it's a slight variance.
Yeah, and so like very few people wake up, put on their Patagonia vest, and go into their office, and they're just like, "Ooh, what are my bottlenecks today that I can unblock and then circle?" But like people just don't do that, and
Uh-huh.
especially like in like Seymour's user base is primarily like creators and people that post online, and like those people definitely don't think like that, and
Mhm.
so the intent behind behind the questions I think is really really important, and it is like generally the right things to chase down to try and understand like where people actually have like meaningful problems, and how they deal with them.
Mhm.
But it's got to be like much more organic in that like and like specific to
Mhm.
like if I just said, hey, what are some things that you did to try to solve this problem, I
Mhm.
would get 10 answers and maybe one of them would actually be an earnest attempt and the rest would be the retconning like all of these other things that they did in their day.
Oh.
Like I find that a lot. Like a lot of people, uh, most of the signal you get from like people and users doing something is in. I mean, we talk about stated versus revealed preference all the time on Farcaster, but like it's deeper than that. In people aren't trying to say things that they don't do. They just fully don't realize that like the way that they thought they were solving a problem just wasn't actually how they did it a lot of the time. Um,
Oh.
the Naomi, thanks for dropping by. The
And thanks for dropping by, Fuck, who has now a what is that game called?
Fallout.
The Fallout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like people try their very best to be helpful to the point where even if they don't know what the answer is, they're going to give you an answer about
Mhm.
themselves because they want to be that helpful. But like what you really got to do is like, oh, all these people said that they love the onboarding flow, but only like 10% finished it. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Like,
gee, I wonder where they went.
yeah. And and so like it's not like a malicious thing. It's just
Mhm.
we don't understand ourselves well enough to really answer that honestly in a lot of cases. Experts do. If you meet like a master of their craft who's been doing it for a long time, often they can be like, "Hey, I like I'm gonna butcher this. I think it's a Picasso quote, but it's like amateurs get together and talk about art, artists get together and talk about turpentine." And it's like the mechanics of the profession of the craft, like
Mhm.
you can only intelligently talk about it when you've done it long enough to learn all the things the hard way. And so like that's kind of like the mentality I try to take when I like am looking for people to listen to.
So what are better questions to ask?
I find emotion-based questions are really really useful,
Mm.
because everybody knows how they feel. They don't know why they feel that way a lot of the time, but like what pissed you off the most about X? Or
Mm.
like for example, if we ask the chat, like, what's the
Mhm.
most annoying part of Farcaster right now? Everyone
Mhm.
has an answer to that. And like in aggregate, that's going to be a useful question and answer session. But if I asked, hey, what would you fix about Farcaster?
Ooh.
It'd be all over the place.
That
And
is
so
true.
and so it's like it's kind of like you're trying to like you got to close your eyes and you're trying to feel around the room to figure out like what the reality of the answer is, because like if we knew the answer, then like you wouldn't need to ask the question.
Right. Gosh, this really reminds me of yesterday when I was practicing listening with my friends, and one of them got through to one of my latest frustrations. Okay.
Yeah. What is
And
it?
you know, I think like the best questions to, like for me, are the ones where you can somehow pin me down and like figure out what I'm annoyed about.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's usually so nebulous, and I usually have like my canned answers, right?
Yeah.
So, Cameron, what
Yeah.
happened was I've been annoyed because I've never felt more clear about what I should do with my life.
Dang.
And therefore, here's the thing. I thought, okay, if you're really clear on your life's path and purpose, then you should feel really good, right? But turns out, like, because now I know
No.
what I need to do, I feel slower than ever. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm moving at a glacial pace right now. And I'm like so frustrated because I'm like, it's right there. It's right there. We just need to get there. And now I'm like, oh, I see why this is. It's because when I was feeling like nebulous and unclear, in a way,
Yeah.
you can't measure speed because I don't know where I'm going. So it doesn't matter.
That's so tough. Like, congratulations, and I'm sorry. The like, okay, so I have so many thoughts about this, and I think we might go a little bit over today, but that's okay. The like, because this is, I agree with Daisy. The questions episode, I think, is one of our better so far, and it's a lot of fun because like I love questions, and I know you do too. The way that I think about knowing what you need to do is you're effectively collapsing all of your probability distributions for your life into one, or like a small set.
Yeah.
And that's scary, because like when you have infinite probability distributions, well, guess what? Some of them are way out to the right-hand side and have like this potential value to be, you know, richest person in the world, like space, Mars, whatever, king, queen. And so like, once you're like, no, I'm not going to be president when I grow up, your world like gets clearer, but also smaller. And that feels bad. Because you want to have like the infinite upside opportunity in your like potential decision set, or at least feel like it. But it kind of goes back to the stuff that we talk about all the time, which is one, that's not really like a realistic way to think about your life. And two, you know, it's not necessarily what you actually want out of it anyway. Like
well,
there's a
do
lot.
you think what we collectively want right now with the show is a dangerous proposition?
So, okay, saying that back to you.
Name what we want.
Well, okay, I don't know what I want, but so I know some of the things that I want. But saying it back to you using some of our lessons learned of summarizing in 5 words. Let's see how many I get. Be careful what you wish for. All right, so that's 6.
Yeah.
But okay, but
if you don't wish for anything, how would you get there? Yeah,
I mean, like you get somewhere. It just might be the same spot that you're already in. Okay, but okay.
Or you
so,
go, or you go.
I'm
back.
all over the place right now because I'm so excited. What do you believe that you want in this current moment? I'll give my answer too, so it's fair.
In this current moment, so not
well, in like the conversation that you were having yesterday.
Oh, I want us to be famous YouTubers.
Interesting. What is there a number associated with that?
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Like to me, like the fame level is 200,000, but it is completely arbitrary, and it's based on like the shows I watch, like the ones I really admire, who like there. I feel like they settle into something at 200,000, and then whether they make it into the millions, like that is a crapshoot. I think the quality of like 200,000 and 2 million is actually about the same. And there's things you can do to like get there. But I feel like the quality that's inferred by that number of audience seems really attractive to me.
And that quality being like a chance to get recognized, the freedom to do the kinds of things that you want to do, like creative freedom. Like where can you make it a little more tangible?
All of the above.
Okay. Would it
it's
solve money
impossible.
problems? Like,
This is like, Chad, this is, I hope it's not creepy to hear this, but I would love to have a stable friendship with you that is maintained until we get to 200,000. And I feel
yeah,
like for me, like as you know, some of my biggest stressors is retention, right? I'm like, oh, are we entertaining enough to keep people who are already here to keep watching?
yeah,
Because as you know, that number is fluctuating literally on our screen as we're talking.
yeah. A little dystopian, but also
It
cool.
is a little dystopian. Yeah. That's actually a meter I'm watching. And like, and I feel like, actually, Chris Herman is mentioning like Hak Tua is famous now. However, is she gonna be? Does she have staying power? It's like it's her
Yeah,
whole connection with the audience just based on the stunt, right? That's not something I want to build. And I feel like for me, like the long term, like parasocial, like relationships I have with YouTubers, like it's because I really enjoy this stuff and I don't leave. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. There's actually, and this is a whole separate conversation to have, but there's actually a very real ego boost and death associated with this channel, in the sense that like anytime somebody watches one of our things and doesn't like it, it is kind of a vote against us as human beings, because like this isn't writing, it's not just our distilled thoughts, it is like the whole package of a version of Kristen and Cam. And if you watch one of our shorts and you don't like it, cool, you just kind of have let us know that you don't want to interact with us, which like I haven't super experienced before, at least in like a public online setting, because Farcaster's so nice.
Yeah, it's a little nice bubble, and the thing
It's
is,
training
like,
wheels.
we put our show out there in the other places, we actually get to see like people who don't know us react
Yeah.
to us, and it's been really good stoicism training.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of like trying to let go, right? Like you look back, all of the body dysmorphia comes in, all of the like, oh no, that wasn't as clever as I thought it was, and like, oh, I screwed up the edit. The oh man, there's so many good questions in chat. But I want to give you the opportunity to poke me back before we do kind of like a chat lightning round at the end.
Yeah, but like, so you were asking me to unpack like,
Yeah.
the questions and the emotions that I feel lately, right? And how it's wrapped up into this arbitrary goal that like I would like for the both of us. But it took questions to narrow down to be like, wait, like, because I have, as you said, like limited my set of outcomes. It's like, well, no wonder I feel stressed out, because I've actually made it harder for myself. And maybe that's the price of focus. It's like, well, you got to aim for something, and the narrower your circle, the harder it is, and our challenges.
I think it's the illusion of making it harder, because roadmaps are easy, progress is hard. Like the reason why a pre-product startup can raise $20 million on a pitch is because there is no interaction with reality that is like pushing back against the things that they're saying. And that like energy that you can bring into that conversation can make up for all of the implausibilities in your story. But a lot of people raise a lot of money, and they put out like, I'm trying to think of not a curse word because we had a conversation about that. Like they put out nothing as like a product. Like there's so many companies that like work for a year or two in silence with funding that never ship a product to users. And that's because that shit's hard. And so,
right. And then like the thing is if you have no users, in a way, there's infinite possibility. Therefore, the evaluation can be much, much higher.
Yeah. And so like the reality of narrowing your outcome set or your goal set is that any incremental decision that you make is actually going to be much closer to the right direction, because it's a lot easier in the product framing. It's a lot easier to be like, oh, we're going to ship an MVP of this kind of thing in the next like 2 months. And then like, nobody questions you because you're still working on the thing and it doesn't hit reality. But the second you ship it, the question then becomes, okay, how did it do? How are you going to make it better? And like, that's really hard, because a lot of the times when you ship something, you're like, oh, that wasn't the thing, or it didn't solve the problem, or it kind of did, but it actually sucks. And so you need to fix this, 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 and this. And unfortunately, the this, and this is really boring, focused work where you're like, oh, I need to make sure all of the widths are aligned on this page. Or, oh,
Yeah.
I know I need to wake up every day and get some sunlight before I start my day. Or, oh, I need to, hit the gym in order to hit my fitness goals. Or, like, all that stuff is boring, real reality, like punching you in the face because it knows what you're trying to do. And like the world wants you to stay still because that's like an optimal survival strategy.
Right, right. So I would say like my takeaway for like the question episode is like
Yep.
I like recommend myself and for others like question the questions you're asking yourself
Yeah.
because a lot of these why questions are really like inactivating. And what questions at least can evoke a little bit more action and like unblocking. What do you think of that?
I mean, I think we ask questions to find out more about things, but also to break patterns. Like a why is a bid to re-examine a pattern like in yourself or in others. And so if you like wield them as such in your life, I think you can get a lot more out of the things that you're doing because like it'll help you identify things that you don't want to keep doing. It'll reinforce the things that you do want to keep doing. And it'll it's like a way either by yourself, which is like kind of how I do it a lot of the time, or in a group, which it sounds like you perhaps more healthily do. Like it gives you an opportunity to like reflect on the things that you're spending your limited time on, which is cool.
Yeah. And Space to Be is left up with a wonderful question. What do I need right now?
Yeah. What's the next right thing? Okay. All right. I think we play the outro music and we try to answer as many of these questions from chat as we can and see what happens.
Oh yeah. I'm going to turn it down one notch.
All right. Space to Be. I don't like shorts in general. I get that. I also think it's much more useful to think of them as commercials. All right. Appreciate the kind words about thinking we're going to get to wherever we're trying to heck to go.
What about this, Cameron? You're basically saying that expectation versus reality dynamic of life hits different, right?
Yes and no. I think if you have healthy expectations, reality is probably going to match them pretty well.
All right. Well, we'll see you all on Thursday. I see some suggestions for the theme of Thursday's stream, and we'll ponder that one.
Yeah, we'll pop it out. 10 user tests and heat maps.